Hello, welcome to another edition of Fourth Down Magazine's Fourth and Goal, where we break down everything going on in the Mid-Penn Conference, bring you some of the game's biggest names. We got another good one today, just you wait, and maybe we'll have a few laughs along the way. I'm Jake Adams, as always, the host. I'm here with Andy Shea, the illustrious Andy Shea. Andy, hello. It is October. Are you ready for spooky season?
I'm not a Halloween guy. It's just not. I get it. I don't have a problem with it. I like to give out the candy. I don't, a few adult beverages and enjoy the giving out of the candy process. I might put a costume of some sort on, but I'm not a spooky season guy.
I'm going off
So
script here. I'm going
no,
off
do
script here.
not.
I'm going to ask you a hot seat question because you like to throw the players on the hot seat. But what's your favorite Halloween or horror movie?
Okay, so I hate horror films because I don't like stuff that scares me.
Fair
But
enough.
when I wasn't as life seasoned as I am now, how about that term? Um, Friday the 13th was they were scary, the originals and the original one and two were pretty darn scary with Jason. The movie that absolutely scared me when I was a kid was Jaws. I saw it when I was like 12 or 13 and it was the wrong move. Wrong move. I couldn't even go in a pool. I was so scared. So yeah,
Life altering moments of Andy Shea, a
there you go.
memoir.
There you go.
Well, we still got a couple weeks till Halloween, but we are very much in the thick of the high school football season, conference play, division play right now in the Mid Penn.
Absolutely.
Andy, there weren't a whole lot of big moments last week. There were no stunners. If you go look at our fourth down staff picks and predictions, basically everyone went sheet, which I think might be a first. So we've got plenty to talk about in week 7, though. But just real quick, just to give week 6 its due, what was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, it's behind us. I mean, that's literally like I'm glad it was over because when I looked at it, I was like, "E boy," and then I kept looking at it and I was like, I mean, 10 teams scored 40 or more points that won, right? That which tells you exactly what we thought. It was a hard to find a solid two-team matchup last week, and it
Mhm.
played out that way. Most games were not very competitive. There were only, I think, 2 games decided by fewer than 10 points. So when it comes to week 6 overall, it was a lot of mismatches. Doesn't mean there weren't, plenty of great individual performances. There were. And
Mhm.
you can only play who's in front of you, right? But in a mismatch, the numbers, even though they might be great performances, they're inflated. So it was a hard week to gauge much because it was that the gap between the haves and have nots was rather large. I mean, West Perry scored 72 points and didn't play a single starter the second half.
Yeah. I think we'll look back at this as kind of just like the calm before the storm. There's some good games in week 7. We'll get to some of next week's games here a little later in the show, but I think weeks 8, 9, and 10 especially are going to be some really, as you like to term them, hammer games.
Yep.
And week 6 is just kind of like that calm break before everything really gets crazy. With looking ahead a little bit here, since there's not a ton to talk about from last week, I think the biggest storyline here for the next few weeks, I mean, it could happen this week, but it'd take one heck of a performance in order to do so. And Steel High, making some decisions with playing time here that I don't think they would make. But over the next few weeks, we're on Alex Irby watch with him chasing the state passing yardage record.
Yep.
He's got several hundred more to go. It's probably not going to happen this week. But I want to ask you a little bit about, him here. He's obviously a prolific passer. You have to be to get to the yardage that he's at, but they've also had a lot of explosive weapons in his 4 years. Steel High has been a state playoff contender every year. They have a state
Yep.
championship during this run. So with all that in mind, for you, what do you think makes Irby so special?
So he's mobile and throws good on the run. That's one. Particularly to his left. He's
Hmm.
big and he has a big arm. And I would say he's solidly accurate, but I wouldn't say accuracy is a strength. And that so and they just simply, like you said, they just had so much more talent at the wide receiver position around him at the class A 1A level and in the capital division, right? So he's performed on the biggest stages possible that he could play on, and he delivered. So that in my mind is what makes him so special. Is okay, all the yards and the, what do you have? Almost 500 yards last week and 6 touchdowns. I think it was
Yeah.
490 something against. I'm not saying the opponent to protect the innocent, but you know, I think he will be remembered for on the biggest stages in some of the tightest spots that he still delivered. I think that is what he will be remembered for individually, as well as, becoming
Yeah.
all-time leading passer in Pennsylvania. That's it.
Well, you kind of like stole a little bit of my question here because that's what I was going to ask you. And again, we've got a couple weeks probably we'll still be talking about him because it's such a big storyline, especially in like the Mid-Penn conference that we have
Sure.
potentially the future state passing leader. This conference is known, especially in like the Commonwealth, for being a run-heavy power football kind of conference. But how will we remember his tenure and coinciding this Rollers era of football, which to me at least, being a little bit more naive to that team in particular, coming from covering the Carlisle area mainly, this era of Rollers football that he's been a part of.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for this era, and there was an era when the Trinity coach Jordan Hill and Andre Campbell was the quarterback, and all of those guys, they had a 2,000-yard running back, they had receivers, their defense was good. I'll remember this era for the amount of points they scored, and more specifically, probably the number of times they scored 50 or more points in the game. And they can throw the ball, but I think it's completely and always undervalued how much they can be balanced and still score 50 points quickly.
Yeah.
So that's what stands out right off the top of my bald head, Jake.
It's been especially with these smaller schools, you never know exactly how long the window is going to open for them. We've talked a little bit about like West Perry's run the last few years, which has been historic for that program. Steel High has had a longer history of football dominance, especially for their size, but still the fact that this 4-year run has been this good with him at the helm says something. And it'll be interesting to talk about this the next few weeks with you and potentially bring him on, hopefully too, at some point here this season. But speaking of guests, we've got another one coming up. Mateo Crummel from Central Dolphin. He'll be here to join us in just a second. Joining us today is Central Dolphin receiver Mateo Crummel. The Rams are 4-2 and have been quite impressive down since the down 2022 season. Coming off a blowout win over Carlisle last week, set to face rival Cumberland Valley, which has always been a classic on Friday night. Mateo's had a breakout senior season as a receiver and defensive back, fresh off a 4-touchdown, 209-yard performance. He's got 31 receptions, 528 yards, and 7 touchdowns already this season, which is among the best in the Mid-Penn in all categories. Yep. He's also got 133 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns and 31 tackles, half a sack, 4 pass breakups on defense. He can do it all. Mateo, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not bad. So we got a couple questions for you here today. Hope we have some fun with it. I'll start first here, and Andy will jump in. That was a heck of a performance that you specifically had against Carlisle. I know it was kind of an all-around team dominant performance, but for you to have 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, have you ever had a game, whether at the Pee Wee level, the middle school level, or anything else like that, that was that dominant for performance, just like you had on Friday?
I don't think I have. It was like a very exciting moment to score 4 touchdowns in the game.
Was it an out of body experience there? Can you take us through it a little bit?
Yeah, it was kind of out of body, but going into the game, I knew I could do it. I was planning on doing it. And I think if I would have played in the second half more, I could have done even more.
Yeah, it was a blowout. You guys were done pretty early. Was it a little bit, just asking to follow up on you, was it a little bit by design to kind of work on the passing game a little bit last week?
I wouldn't say so. It was like a balance.
Right.
But since they were playing up and had no safety over top, no help,
Right.
it just went to the air.
Yeah, it's pick your poison with CD, and by balance he means not 80% running the ball and 20% throwing it, more like 65-35, because that is balance for CD. Hey, 3-7 last year, that's so far off the radar for this program. It happens for a reason, right? I'm sure there's several reasons for why a team goes 3-7. But I'm curious from your perspective, what did you guys identify during the offseason that had to be a priority? I mean, what was important for you guys? What did you guys make important to make sure that 3-7 was a blip? And I already know losing your quarterback, that makes a difference. But 3-7 just isn't about losing your quarterback, right? So what did you guys make a priority to make sure that 3-7 was a blip and not something that was pervasive?
We made sure to work hard, get back and bring back the culture that we had at CD and that we've built for many years to be a great defense, have great offense, bring that back all together.
So you guys lost your opener to Central York. And I said to you before we started recording, I thought you guys played pretty good in that game. I was like, CD's playing pretty good football. They're a better team already. I just watched when I was watching the first half, I'm like, they're already better than at any point they were last year. Central York just has an FBS running back, and that guy had himself a day. But then you guys beat Wilson in overtime, and you went for 2 in overtime to beat Wilson. And that sort of lit the fuse for you guys. What about that win over Wilson? Was it how it happened or that it just happened that changed a lot of things for you guys?
Well, we knew Wilson was going to be a hard team to beat. And since we pulled it out this year, we knew it could do great things, have a great season, and have a run in the playoffs, potentially.
I've got your film right now. Like, I think it's the Huddle week 1 through 6 video that you have. And speed's obviously apparent in your game, whether it's, the quick screens or simple go routes. I know you kind of advertise that part of your game on your Twitter bio there. But beyond the speed, is there an underrated aspect of your game, maybe, strength, whatever it may be, route running that you think it doesn't get enough credit?
Yeah, my route running and my ability to break tackles, I feel.
Yeah, it's apparent. The first video or the first highlight on this video that I'm watching is you taking an end around and breaking like 2 or 3 tackles right at the line of scrimmage or maybe like 5 yards beyond. You definitely have some pretty good body control. My follow-up to that is there anyone on your team that can beat you in a foot race?
No.
Anyone come close?
No, not at all.
What do you have a 40 time? Do you have a clock 40 time that you share and that you put out there? Do you mind giving us what it is?
I run a 4.4 flat at Miami, Ohio camp.
Wow.
That's
a different. And by the way, for you, Jake, they're not called end arounds, and they're called jet sweeps. I'm just telling you.
Dating myself quite a bit there.
Yes, they're jet sweeps. They run them a lot. They run them more effectively than anybody. Hey, Mateo, let me ask you about, playing wide receiver. Having said that, Central Dolphins, they're sort of built on the offensive line and the running game. The running game, that sort of drives the engine. So what kind of role have you played? What is your role? What is the role you play in the offense as a wide receiver now, averaging 17 yards a catch? Are you seeing it expand as you head into the late season, or has it kind of been the same all along?
I see it expanding because I've been performing well. And as the run game, as the pass game opens up, the run game will open up even more because they'll be scared of the deep threat of me.
Yeah, I mean, Jake, we've got him on here, but anybody that's got 30 plus catches and averaging 17 a grab, you got to get him the ball. That's the end of the. I mean, Central Dolphin doesn't have any choice. Their run game is solid. It's not great, but it's good. Their offensive line opens up holes. But man, when you got a guy getting 17 yards to catch, you got to get him the rock. So, you ready to go on the hot seat? No, first of all, how many uniform combinations do you guys have? I've seen gray. Was it gray last week? I've seen camo for the salute, or was that a camo? Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a black? Is there still a green and white? Is there an all white? How many do you have at your guys' disposal this year? Just out of curiosity.
Well, the camo was only for one game.
Right. But
Everything else, we have a lot, multiple combinations that we could wear.
what is your favorite combination now that I got you? What do you, I mean, it's always that helmet's always the same, right? Is the helmet
Mhm.
always the same? Yeah, the helmet's always the same. But the socks, the pants, and what is your favorite combo? Which one do you like the best that you guys have to choose from?
Probably all white looks the best, cleanest.
How are they picked? Is it captains? Is it coaching? How do you guys pick? I mean, road games are different because you're a little limited, but what's the process for you guys to pick? Because you have more combinations than most.
We just see your class, talks it out, and then tells the coach.
Cool,
Gotcha.
cool. All right, Mateo, you ready to go in the hot seat? I got a few short questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah,
All right, beach house or lake house? Which one?
beach house.
Give me one person only. They could be dead or alive. That's your choice. Give me one person that you want to have lunch with. Who is it?
Michael Jackson.
Nice. Nice. I saw Michael Jackson in concert, by the way. Now I'm old enough. But we talked about your uniforms just a couple minutes ago. Give me another team, not Central Dolphin. Give me another team in the Mid-Penn Conference whose uniform combination kind of catches your eye and you like. Who is it?
Ooh, like any Commonwealth or
Any team in the Mid-Penn Conference. It could be anybody.
probably McDevitt. I like their gold and blue.
Nice. McDevitt gets a lot of shout out. All right, last question. Sheets, and you can give us as little or as much detail as you like. When you go to Sheets, what is your go-to order there?
You get the breakfast sandwich, and then you put waffle for the bread. Then you put maple sausage, egg, cheese, and then add bacon. And don't forget the syrup.
Did you see how much his face lit up when you asked that question? Like he's been pretty stoic this entire interview, but you ask him about his Sheets order and he starts talking about breakfast sandwiches and he is just excited.
So Mateo you gave us the most detail on your sandwich, which I absolutely love. A couple guys have been like, well, first of all, you have to get the chocolate milk, or you have to do this, or they're like, I'll get some kind of chicken wrap, Caesar wrap, and something. But then they start talking about the sides. They're like, well, I'll get it this side and that to go with it. And then I'll get like a strawberry milk or I'll get a milkshake. So there is level of details. But I mean, the waffle, and you have to have the syrup with the waffle. And the breakfast sandwich, that's any time of day, right? You'll get that any time of day.
Yeah.
Love it. It might be my favorite answer so far this season to that question.
Nice.
Well, Mateo, thanks so much for your time. Congrats so far on a strong bounce back season for you and the Rams. Good luck the rest of the season. You got 4 weeks left until the playoffs. We assume we're going to see you guys there. So good luck and thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mateo. Stay healthy. We appreciate it.
Andy, we're back. Got a couple questions here leading into week 7 and kind of a little bit the rest of the season. We've got in District 3, in the Mid-Penn Conference specifically, Class 5A, Gettysburg, Waynesboro, Palmyra, and Shippensburg are on the outside looking in. In 6A, it's CD East and Cumberland Valley. Somehow, Cumberland Valley, despite their struggles this year, they're just outside of the 8 spots in 6A. Pick one or two teams who has the easiest or the toughest path to make it to the postseason out of those 6 that I just named. Your choice in which direction to go.
Jake, what are you talking about? Did you look at the power rankings?
I did this intentionally.
Oh, so I don't look. I haven't looked. So based on what you're asking me, I think CD and 6A, I think CD East and CB, which neither one's a very good football team by their standards, and they're just not very good this year. They each have 2 hammer games left between a combination of State College, Harrisburg, and CD.
Yeah.
Hello, that's not an easy path. So those aren't games they're capable of winning this year. They're just not. They're not even capable of an upset. I see Gettysburg as having a real opportunity to possibly win 3 of their final 4 games. I think they could. I think the single toughest road has to be Palmyra. They still have to play Cedar Cliff, Hershey, and Milton Hershey in the final month. Eek, that's a tough one.
Brutal. Yeah,
that's a tough road.
Speaking of scary, and maybe this is the answer you plan to give, but which team this week or for the rest of the season, if you want to look farther out, needs to be scared the most?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word scared, but the team that I think will be under a spotlight the most down the stretch late in the year is going to be Steel High, because, and they're not scared of anybody. They aren't, they shouldn't be, and they won't be.
Yeah.
They have to play Trinity and West Perry in the final 2 weeks of the season. That's a test that'll 100% get them playoff ready, win or lose, right? It doesn't matter because they're 1A.
Yeah.
They get to play free in those games, but that's 8 hard quarters of football. Neither one of them's a layup. I think the gap between the Rollers and the Mustangs and the T-Rocks, it's closed, right? I don't know if it's as big as it was last year or even 2 years ago. It was
Mhm.
pretty big. So in terms of who has a scary road at winning a Mid-Penn Conference championship, scary not being they're not scared of anybody. It's
Yeah.
definitely the Rollers.
All right. We'll wrap up here. Final thoughts for this week, this stretch of games that we've got in week 7.
Yeah, a couple of them, a couple catch my eye. Lowerdoff and Cedar Cliff, a couple of one-loss teams. They're like-minded in their intent and approach. They don't play the same style, but they're like-minded in their intent and approach. This one's got a lot of mustard and relish on it for sure. West Perry coming off that school record 72 points. They got to play Big Spring. Now, the Bulldogs are 3-3, and 2 of those losses are by one score, less than one score. They lost 17-14 to Greencastle, and they lost by 6 points to Trinity last week. They also beat Camp Hill in overtime. So they are not an easy team to beat. This is not anything of an indictment against West Perry. I think Big Spring will lose the game. I want to see what West Perry can do for them because they're hard to beat.
And we've seen Big Spring pull off some shocking upsets in the last couple of years. So yeah, they're definitely like, that's a game that I agree with you there. I think Mustangs got the advantage,
Clear favorite.
probably 8 or 9 point favorite there, maybe more, but oh man, that could be a trap game if they're not, don't have their heads on straight here.
Big Spring's going to need a lot of help from West Perry to win the game.
Yeah.
But the one thing I can say of that 3-3 team, they will make you earn your stripes to beat them. In other words, there's one element. It's speed and open space. Steel High had it, and Steel High hammered them, right? They beat them 40-something to 6, or they beat them by a ton they beat them by 5 touchdowns. Let's just use that number. I don't know the exact score. But West Perry has some of that. They don't have a ton of it. So Big Spring can kind of make the game a little bit more in a box. They're very hard to beat. They make you earn it. West Perry's going to probably win the football game. They're a rock solid favorite. If they don't step on their own foot, they're not going to lose this football game.
Well, we're not going to step on our own foots this week. We may step on our tongues a little bit trying to get out of this show, but that's it for us this week. For Andy Shea and the Fourth Down Magazine team, I'm Jake Adams. Make sure that you go to fourthdownmagazine.com this week, the rest of the season, for all your coverage on Mid-Penn Conference football, and a little bit Colonial and Schuylkill League in there as well. We like to mix those guys in too, the former Tri-Valley teams. For week 7's games, for week 8 and beyond, for that crew, I'm Jake Adams. See you guys next week. Enjoy the football games.
See ya.